toilets.
All right, guys, here we go. This has been a requested video, actually. A lot of people are like, hey, do something about Jimmy Dore. And he's talking about something here that it's kind of become like the HPV of YouTube, this whole lab leak thing. Joe Rogan, even Kyle Katrinsky or whatever that guy's name is. A lot of people convinced that this thing came out of a lab, despite there being no evidence for that. But last thing before we get into this, the most important thing here is don't trust anybody on YouTube.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
You would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at...
So Fauci here is being a politician, and I'm going to go ahead and say he's lying because it is gain of function, what he just said. So he's trying to parse his words by saying it's not gain of technically, it's not gain of this, it's that. He does because he doesn't want to take responsibility for this.
So James Dore is saying here that this guy's lying, he's parsing his words, and that he doesn't want to take responsibility. And what he's talking about here is this thing that has, again, spread all over YouTube about this thing called gain of function research, which no one knows what that means. All the people, you're going to see tons of people on YouTube talking about this. None of them know what it means. So I looked again, wasted valuable time. And to best explain this, I'll read this little section from an interview from MIT's magazine. And it's an interview with this guy, Ralph Baric, who actually, he's like one of the leading coronavirus virologists in the world. This is kind of the best explanation here. So they ask him in this magazine, can you call it this gain of function? What they were doing, what Jimmy Dore's talking about, and what Rand Paul, and we're going to get back to Rand Paul in a second here. Can you call it gain of function? And here's his answer. A committee at the NIH makes the determinations of gain of function research. Gain of function rules focus on virus with pandemic potential and experiments aimed at improving the infectivity or pathogenesis of SARS, MERS, and avian influenza strains in humans. Here we go now. To quote Richard Wolff, here we go now. Here's the important part, that this kind of nuance is going to be left out of a lot of goofy YouTube videos. Ultimately, a committee at the NIH is the final arbiter and decides what is and is not an acquisition of function experiment. So in other words, when this guy, Jimmy Dore, says that this guy's lying, the problem here is you're not a scientist, I'm not a scientist, and Rand Paul is, definitely not a scientist because he's too busy getting in fights on his front lawn. The way that they determine whether or not something is gain of function research is scientists watch and determine. And they determined that this was not. That's why this guy Fauci was saying it wasn't. So yes, and this is another thing we have to get into with this Jimmy Dore thing. Yeah, they experiment with these viruses. And the reason is because in order to maybe stop the spread of a pandemic, you kind of have to know how these things work.
Of gain of function research done entirely in Wuhan, for which there was supposed to be a federal pause. Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain of function research in Wuhan?
Now, it looks to me like Dr. Fauci is caught lying once again. Also, we found out that they did fund this research through, they tried to hide it. Through the Echo Watch, a subsidiary, they tried to fund the Wuhan lab because the Obama administration put a pause on this kind of testing.
I want to say here before this next part, I love an old crabby guy. So I'm drawn toward guys like Jimmy Dore. I don't know, like a crabby old guy I kind of enjoy. But this is this part is just straight up misleading because he's like, they try to hide it. They went through a subsidiary, like it's the CIA going through a secret bank or something. Here, I'll read this to you from the LA Times did a pretty good actually summary of all this stuff. In 2014, the Institute Fauci directs awarded a 5-year, $3 million grant to the New York-based Echo Health Alliance. That's what he's talking about. That's what the shadowy, secret company for a project titled "Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence." That project focused heavily on China, where the novel coronavirus had emerged from animals on several occasions. The work promised to explore the potential pandemic risk of such viruses, gathering samples from the field, studying viruses in the lab, and developing models about how they could evolve and spread in real life. In an interview, Fauci said that roughly $600,000 of the grant money went to the WIV, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Scientists there, many of them U.S. trained, were tasked with nailing down the precise origins of the original SARS-CoV-1 virus that arose in China's Guangdong province in 2002. They were also asked to help us understand what we need to look for to spot, okay? So this like secret shadowy thing that he's talking about, which, by the way, has the government done secret shadowy thing? Oh yeah. It's just like he picked the one where it doesn't look like it's the case. So they give grants to organizations of scientists looking into things like viruses that could cause a pandemic, for example. And that's something that we might want to fund because we might want to know about these things. So he's saying, what he's basically saying here is, look, you gave this institute money from a grant. You basically gave a project a grant. Remember, the project is called Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence. And this organization gave some of that money to these people who study the risk of bat coronavirus emergence in Wuhan, exactly what they should have done. And I guess Jimmy Dore is saying we shouldn't have done that. Okay. I guess we just won't give money to scientists to study things? I guess is the idea here.
No.
He gets a little carried away here. Here we go. Makes me a little bit endeared to him, but here we go.
But this kind of experimentation, this gain of function, because it's dangerous, because you could get a pandemic. And so that's the last.
Couple things here. He's saying, because the entire implication here, and Rand Paul is so stupid that he goes all in with this, but the implication here is, of course, that, like, look, they were experimenting in the lab and then they created the coronavirus and it got out and it caused a pandemic and it killed a bunch of people. That's the implication here. But there are muchos problemos with this idea. So the first thing is that they were experimenting on a different virus. And I'll read this again from the LA Times summary of this. How can we be so sure? There is just too much evolutionary distance between the coronavirus samples the Wuhan scientists were working with, all of them genetically sequenced and detailed in published work, and the virus that causes COVID-19. This is what Fauci meant when he told lawmakers this week that it was molecularly impossible for the virus examined in the Wuhan Institute of Virology to evolve into COVID-19. This is the other thing that causes a little bit of a problemo. And again, like, all this is still up in the air. Like, there's just not enough. That's the real takeaway. There's just not enough for any confident conclusion on this. But this came out July 7th, 2021. And this is a bunch of virologists from around the world got together and they did a critical review of the origins of SARS-CoV-2, aka HPV. Sorry, COVID-19. Here's from the conclusions of this paper. As for the vast majority of human viruses, the most parsimonious, explanation for the origin of SARS-CoV-2 is a zoonotic event. It's animal to human. There is currently no evidence that SARS-CoV-2 has a laboratory origin. We contend that there is a substantial body of scientific evidence supporting a zoonotic origin for SARS-CoV-2. Well, this is here we go now. Again, Richard Wolff, here we go now. While the possibility of a laboratory accident cannot be entirely dismissed and may be near impossible to falsify, This conduit for emergence is highly unlikely relative to the numerous and repeated human-animal contacts that occur routinely in the wildlife trade. SARS-CoV-2 carries no evidence of genetic markers one might expect from laboratory experiments.
Because it's dangerous, because you could get a pandemic.
I do like his
And
attitude.
so that's the last thing he wants to do is admit to it. Now, everything I heard Rand Paul just say sounds exactly like they were doing gain of function.
Okay, now this is where we get to the important part here. And Jimmy Dore is doing this thing. I don't know if this is purely cynical to get clicks, to like widen the circle to a right-wing audience. I mean, this video did get almost 250,000 views in just a couple days, but he's doing this thing where he's like, look at this politician, look at this government official, Fauci, look at this guy scamming. You can't trust the government, guys. You can't trust the government, guys. You can't trust them. See, you can't trust them. By the way, I'm going to trust what Rand Paul just said. A guy who is a proven con artist. A guy who will do anything to not do real work, Rand Paul. A guy who would honestly really benefit from having like a restaurant job for a couple months. That guy, that piece of crap. Either, if Jimmy Dore's just doing this as a cynical thing to get clips, fine. Do you? You're trying to pay for your overpriced house or whatever the crap you're up to. You old kook, you. But what's happening here is so obvious that somebody who's doing this, I see the game behind the game thing, should be able to spot that Rand Paul is using this as just a distraction to make it look like he's doing anything, which he's not. The guy does nothing. He has no policy ideas. He's got nothing. So this is what he spends all his time doing. This is from The Intercept, and I think they did a perfect job of explaining what Rand Paul's up to. Almost as soon as the heated exchange concluded, he's talking about Rand Paul and this little Fauci man. As soon as the exchange concluded, the senator's staff uploaded a truncated version of the video on his YouTube channel under the headline, quote, "Dr. Fauci caught lying about NIH funding in Wuhan." So the dude's throwing treats to the morons. And now I guess Jimmy Dore is too. So there you go. There's your truth-telling comedian. That video was edited by Paul's staff so that it ends before Fauci responds to the senator's haranguing by saying, quote, "I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the virus that were used in the experiments, it is molecularly impossible. It is molecularly impossible to result in SARS-CoV-2, which is true." I mean, this is where Rand Paul really messes up, because he could have just kind of like, he could have kind of kept this under the radar a little bit, but he's so stupid. He's such a moron, this idiot, this useless waste of space, that he goes all in on connecting this to COVID-19. Here we go.
The dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's send Dr. Fauci.
Again, I wasted so much time on this. There's absolutely nothing to support what and I like how Jimmy Dore just like lets this one go. But the viruses that they were working with could not create the COVID-19 virus. And I also read you that thing where it says there's no indication that this was manipulated or created in a lab, according to these virologists from around the world. So he's accusing this guy, this little weird old guy, accusing this guy of like basically causing the pandemic because he gave money to an organization that funded something that he should be funding, which is research into dangerous viruses. And he's blaming this guy for the death. I mean, I would honestly have a hard time. If you know what I mean, with this guy. So Jimmy Dore, again, either just trying to get the clicks here or doing the missing what's right in front of his face, which is that you have a moron politician, a useless. What are Rand Paul's policies that he's working on? Oh, nothing. He sits in his office and plays with his tokus all day. That idiot. And so this is what he comes up with. I mean, it's the same that they all do, basically. It's the same crap that they all do. But he's pretty convincing. I mean, if I just watch this and he's like, hey, look, could be a panda, and he's being funny and he's making funny faces, I'd be like, something's going on here. Especially with the amount of time that it takes to like parse through all this like dry, boring, insufferable, indecipherable scientific language and all this crap. No, I'm not doing that. No one who has time for that. So I just say, oh, Jimmy will tell me what's up, or whoever, Kyle or Tim or Little Rick on you. I go to the Little Rick channel for all my news. So just assume everything you hear on YouTube is just made up nonsense entertainment with some little skew to trick you into subscribing, I would say. Thank you. Hey everybody, and thanks so much for watching this video. Like all the other YouTube and podcast perverts, I now have a Patreon. Every week on this Patreon, I'm uploading 2
exclusive
Patreon exclusive shows. They're like real shows, more produced, more edited.
a behind-the-scenes show where I reveal all my secrets, and a show where we go deep on an important topic that you will want to know about. Also, you get the daily and complete live show audio-only feeds. And at the top level, for only 25 bones, you can become a producer. These people that you're seeing right here make this program possible. Without them, nothing. It goes right in the toilet, right in the toilet and in the trash, and we set it on fire. It's these people who make it work. So please, for Christ's sake, become a patron. Bye-bye, love you.